it is that Evans had made another escape, befooling the governor and the prison officers, despite the governor had taken care of each and everything personally, keeping a tight vigil and looking at everything like hawk's eyes. Yet Evans had been able to, he had been able to hoodwink the prison authorities. When it is discovered, of course, there is panic, but the most panicky was the governor. The most panicky was the governor. To him, it appeared McCleary was hurt by Evans, but Evans was actually impersonated McCleary. And he was not the McCleary who had gone out of the jail. He was the one who stayed in. He was the one who appeared to have been hurt in the jail, that was spotted, that was discovered by Stephens later on. Right? Anyway, it is advised McCleary being given the medical aid as he is to be sent to the hospital. So the last paragraph of 84 page, I'll read again. A prisoner backed alongside, but the governor made no immediate move. A prisoner had come from behind, but the governor, he was not fast to move. He looked down again at the last line of the German. He had been trying to recall. He had been trying to recall the last line of that German message. Why? Because that message had been carrying a hint of Evans, which route Evans would take. So that German message, actually, the governor, he was trying to decode the message that was written in German because he knew a little bit of German. To the Haddington roundabout, where you go straight over and make your way to New Graben. New Graben, is it a kind of place he didn't know? Where on earth he had been thinking? New, with N-E-U, he could make out must be something new. It could be new grave. It could be a war grave. It could be a graveyard. This is what he thought. He just recalled that, yes, there was a war grave near a place reading. But no, it was probably a code word. Then he realized that, no, this is not the name of the place, but this is a code word. The meaning or the name of the place to escape is hidden behind it. So he tried to hit that. He tried to discover that. And then it hit him. And then he got it. Then he could discover. Then he could decode the message. Newberry. Now he took no time to decode the message, to decode the place, that this must be Newberry. Newberry was a place, a big sort of a place. Now, the next what happens, he rapped out his orders to the drivers. Send Aldrich's police station and step on it. He rapped out his orders. He quickly, very fast, ordered the drivers to move to St. Aldrich's police station and step on it. And he told the driver to be fast. Take Jackson and Stephens here. And when you get there, ask for Bell. He ordered the driver to take Jackson and Stephens to St. Aldrich's police station. And then he told Jackson and Stephens to contact one Mr. Bell there. Mr. Bell was the chief inspector there. He leaped the stairs to his office 3 at a time. Now he was so much in a hurry that he jumped the stairs, 3 stairs together at a time. And then he contacted Chief Inspector Bell on the phone. And he explained everything to him. He shared all the details with him about Evans. We'll get him, sir, said Bill. We'll get him with a bit of luck. He said, yes, if the luck favors, definitely they will be able to get Evans soon. The governor sat back and lit a cigarette. Ye gods, what a beautifully laid plan it had all been. What a clever fellow Evans was. Indeed, we must agree with governor when he says that. Governor never wanted to praise Evans, but yes, he deserves that compliment. How clever he was. Why? Why he deserves to be why he deserves an appreciation. However, an evil plot it was. However, it was a plot to escape from the jail. Right? Yet it deserves appreciation because under such strict vigil, under such heavy security, under such heavy guards, yet Evans had laid such a beautiful plan that he carried it out successfully and he moved out of the prison very successfully and smoothly. So this is only a person who is very clever can do it, and so is Evans. Careless leaving that question paper behind. But despite though he is very clever, yet he has made a mistake. What? That he had left that question paper carelessly. But then they all made their mistakes somewhere along the line. But then governor admits that all the criminals, they do make one mistake someday. Twice they escape, thrice they escape. But you say that what happens once in the lifetime they are caught and they are put behind the bars. And this happens when they make a mistake, not deliberately. But after all, we all are humans. So are they. Right? However cunning, however clever and shrewd and schemish they are, yet they make the mistakes. And this is what Evans had also done. The mistake that he had done, you can get this question in short questions. What was the mistake he had done? That after the plan, he had left that question paper, the photocopied question paper, that he had left that question paper in the prison. Well, almost all of them, this is for the criminals, that all the criminals, they do make mistakes. And that is why very, very shortly, Mr. Clever Evans would be back inside doing his once more. And then governor is thinking that it is because of this mistake that Evans, who considers himself very, very clever, once again, he would be back, he would be making another round to the jail. He would be back to the jail. The phone on his desk erupted in a strident burst. The governor's phone in his office rang again very loud, and Superintendent Carter informed him that McLeary had spotted Evans driving off along Elsfield Way. They had got the number of the car all right and had given chase immediately, but had lost him at the Huntington roundabout. He must have doubled back into the city. Now, what is this? This is all again perhaps to confuse them, right? But he says Superintendent Carter, he called the governor to inform him that McLeary, whom he was taking to Radcliffe Hospital, he had noticed Evans driving along Elsfield Way. They have noted down the number of the car. They had been chasing the car, but soon it had turned out of their sight at the roundabout. At roundabout, they had missed the car. So the Superintendent Carter presumes maybe he would get back to the city again so they can catch him. No, said the governor quietly. No, he's on his way to Newbury because now he has decoded the message. Now it has become easy for him to chase him. So he tells Carter that no, he is very much there. He is going towards Newbury. And then he explained his reasons for believing so. He explained his reasons. He told him why he thinks that he was going to Newbury, because he had decoded that message, and left it at that. It was a police job now, not his. Then he thought that it is the police job to catch this criminal, not his. So let the police do his duty. He was just another good for a giggle, gullible governor. That was all. Then the governor was thinking, after all, he had become a good for a giggle, meaning he had become a subject of mockery by the people. The people would make fun of him. That what vigilance, what security arrangements governor had done when he could not prevent a criminal from escape. Gullible governor he was. Gullible governor, the governor who was so easily befooled by a criminal. This is what he had been thinking. By the way, Carter, I hope you managed to get McLeary to the hospital all right. Now, what is it? Governor is definitely anxious. He is not at ease because it would be considered his failure if Evans had escaped and if Evans is not caught. So he calls Carter again to confirm that he must have taken McLeary to the hospital. He just wanted to reconfirm. Yes, he's in the Ratcliffe now. He reconfirms and assures governor, Carter assures governor that yes, he had dropped him at Ratcliffe. He is in the Ratcliffe. Really groggy he was. Groggy, weak. He said, sir, he was so weak. When we got to the examination offices and they rang for the ambulance from there. He said, when we went to the examination offices, he was so weak, so they only had called for an ambulance from there. In that ambulance, he was sent to Ratcliffe Hospital. The governor rang the Ratcliffe a few minutes later and asked for the accident department. Why? Is it that governor does not trust his staff, his subordinates? No. It was because he had realized that Evans was very clever. He could play any trick. He could do anything just to escape. Do you remember that right in the beginning, the writer said that he was kleptomaniac. So when he had to escape, he can carry out any plan, any evil plan. So that's why he rang at Ratcliffe Hospital. And there he talked to the people in the accident department. McLeary, you say, they are reconfirming. You want to know about McLeary, the person? Yes, he is a parson. See, it's not person, it's parson. Parson meaning a churchman, a religious man. I don't think there is anyone. The man from the accident department informed the governor that there was no such admission of any man with the name McLeary in the hospital. Yes, there is. You will find one of your ambulances picked him up from Elsfield way about. Then he gives him the hint that you just check it again. There must be a man McLeary here. You just remember that you got a call from one of the ambulances from Elsfield way. So you must have got it. Oh, that. Yes, we sent an ambulance, all right. But when we got there, the fellow had gone. He said that, yes, we sent an ambulance, all right. Just a minute, okay? Just a minute. Yes, he said yes. Yes, we sent an ambulance. He remembered that there was a call from Elsfield Way for an ambulance, and they had sent an ambulance there. But he reported when they went there, the man, this McCleary, for whom ambulance had been called, he had disappeared. No one seemed to know where he was, just vanished, not a sign. He said no one could find him. He just disappeared from there. There was no sign of this man. But the governor was no longer listening. And the truth seemed to hit him with an almost physical impact somewhere in the back of his neck. What does it mean? He was not listening to anything, but he could easily make out, he felt as if he had got a blow on his neck. He had got a blow on his neck because he had been deceived. He had been befooled so easily once again by a criminal. A quarter of an hour later, they found the Reverend S. McCleary securely bound and gagged in his study in Broad Street. Now the hunt must have started for McCleary. So they must have visited McCleary's residence. And what they found McCleary in Broad Street, in his study in Broad Street, where he was tied with the ropes and his mouth was gagged. Gagging the mouth is blocking the mouth with cloth so that he could not raise his voice or he could not speak. So his mouth was gagged. He had been there, he said, since 8:15 a.m. when two men had called, and so he had been tied and gagged since 8:15 in the morning when two men had come. So now do you understand what it is? Those two men who had tied him, one of them must have impersonated him, McCleary. As McCleary, he got an entry into the prison. And I think now the facts are being unfolded, Manish, that this McCleary, the way he was dressed up, right? The way he was dressed up, and you remember that Evans had asked for the blanket. Under the blanket, Evans must have changed. Evans and that impersonated McCleary, they must have exchanged their clothes. And then Evans impersonated McCleary. So one McCleary went out, but that was not Evans. And the McCleary that stayed in, that was hurt, that was bleeding, that was being taken to Redcliffe Hospital, that was Evans. Inquiries in Newbury throughout the afternoon produced nothing at all. And by tea time, everyone in the prison knew what had happened. Such news spread like fire. So news spread everywhere. And by the evening, everyone in the prison knew that Evans had escaped. It had not been Evans impersonating McCleary who had walked out. It had been Evans impersonating McCleary who had stayed in. So this is what I told you earlier, that the one McCleary, the man who had entered the prison as McCleary, is not McCleary, but he had been wearing double the dresses which he had given to Evans when he had wrapped himself with the blanket. It was difficult to change, yet he could manage to change under the blanket. And he appeared as McCleary. And that's how the McCleary who had stayed in was Evans. The fish and chips were delicious, and after a gentle stroll round the center of Chipping Norton, Evans decided to return to the hotel and have an early night. Evans had escaped. He was enjoying snacks somewhere near the center of Chipping Norton, and from there he had decided to return to the hotel which had already been booked for him. and have an early night. He wanted to go there and have an early sleep. A smart new hat concealed the wreckage of his closely cropped hair. Closely cropped hair, the hair that had got a wash, that had got into the bunch because of that blood, right? So he just picked up, he just bought another new hat to hide that close cropped hair so that he could not be identified. And he kept it on as he walked up to the reception desk of the Golden Lion. The Golden Lion is the name of the hotel. It would take a good while for his hair to regain its former glories. He said it would take some time to get his normal hair. But what the hell did that matter? Anyway, it was not very important to him. He was out again, wasn't he? What was important to him? Escape. He had escaped at last. He was happy with that. A bit of bad luck that when Jackson had pinched his scissors, for it had meant a long and tricky operation with his only razor blade the previous night. He said one bad luck was that he had kept a pair of scissors also, but scissors was collected by Jackson. You remember in the beginning when before the exam started, Jackson had frisked him and anything he found suspicious or anything that was sharp he had collected from him. So he had picked up those scissors also from him, which could help him. But because of that scissors, because of the absence of the scissors or non-availability of the scissors, it took him time. But he had had his good luck too, just think. But at the same time, he was fortunate enough. If Jackson had made him take his bobble hat off, phew, that really had been a close call. Thank God Jackson had not been fussy about him picking up or removing his hat. Otherwise, all the secret would have been out. How? That you will get to know later. Just imagine close cropped hair, covered with blood. So this is what the arrangement has been done by him under the hat. That really had been a close call. Still, old Jackson wasn't such a bad fellow. But anyway, he does not find him a very harsh or cruel person. One of the worst things, funny really, had been the beard. He had always been allergic to sticking plaster, and even now his chin was irritatingly sore and red. You remember, he had been carrying an artificial, a false beard, which he had been wearing. And it must be that that beard has some sticky adhesive, which was causing discomfort to Evans. So Evans was not happy with that beard that he was carrying. Is that clear? Any problem? Any doubt? The receptionist wasn't the same girl who had booked him in, but the change was definitely for the better. He came to the hotel reception. There he found a different girl, a different receptionist that was not the same when he booked the hotel. But the change was definitely for the better, meaning, yes, definitely, this receptionist was more beautiful than the first one. Now, there is the mystery of this receptionist also. As he collected his key, he gave her his best smile, told her he wouldn't be bothering with breakfast, ordered the Daily Express, and asked for an early morning call at 6:45 a.m. Tomorrow was going to be another busy day. He took the keys of his robe and he gave a big smile and he told her that he wanted that he is not going to take breakfast. He asked for the newspaper, Daily Express, and then he told the receptionist that he should be receiving an early morning call at 6:45 a.m. That is wake-up call. because the next day was going to be a busy day for him. He whistled softly to himself as he walked up the broad stairs. He had sort of liked the idea of being dressed up as a minister dog collar and everything. Now here he reveals the secrecy. Here he reveals the very fact to his readers that how Evans had impersonated McClary. He says he liked this idea, impersonating, disguising himself as McClary, dressing up himself as the minister. Yes, it had been a jolly good idea for McClary to wear two black fronts, two collars, but that top collar, phew, it had kept on slipping off the back stud, and there had been that one panicky moment when McClary had only just got his hand up to his neck in time to stop the collar springing apart before Stephens. So here he reveals that how he had disguised himself, or how he had impersonated himself as McClary. McClary, the man who impersonated McClary, time and again I say that, Manish, because his invigilator was not actually McClary, who had been deputed from the church. Right? He was also an impersonator. So this McClary, who had appeared in the prison as invigilator, he was wearing two black coats and two collars and back buttons. The panicky moment was when McClary had just got his hand up to his neck in time. Why? Because his backstud was, his collar was slipping. And if it had slipped, then he could be caught. But he had been holding his hand tightly up to his neck to stop the collar from slipping, while Stephens had been staring at them. They had got that little problem worked out all right, though. He is very thankful. Oh God, thanks, that this problem had been sorted out well in time. Though a pen stuck in the mouth whenever the evil eye had appeared at the peephole, he knew he could make out after how much short interval Stephens had been coming to the peephole, to peer through the peephole. So accordingly, he would keep looking at the peephole with a pen between his teeth and keep staring at the peephole. So as a result, Stephens could not suspect him. He could not make out, he could not smell any change. Easy. But all that fiddling about under the blanket with the black front and the stud at the back of the collar, that had been far more difficult than they had ever bargained for. Now he says, but all the fiddling, the changing of dress under the blanket. I've already told you how he changed. Changing the dress under the blanket, and that too with the buttons at the back of the collar. It was little tedious job. It was a bit difficult for him. More difficult than they had planned. They had bargained, meaning they had planned. Everything else had gone beautifully smoothly. Everything went off very well. Though in the car he had found everything they had promised him. They had made all arrangements for him. When he escaped from there in the car that he had hired, he had been provided with everything. So water cloths, map. Yes, the map, of course, the map of the town of Oxford. The Ordnance Survey map of Oxfordshire. He had got some good friends, some very clever friends. Christ, he is expressing his gratitude to God that he had been blessed with some good friends who had made all arrangements for his safe exit, for his safe escape. Anyway, now he has reached his room. He unlocked his bedroom door and closed it quietly behind him, then stood frozen to the spot. As he turned, he was frozen, he was still, he was motionless. Why? What has he seen? Like a man who has just got a glimpse of the Gorgon. He had just turned like a stone. He had become motionless like a stone, like a man who had just seen Gorgon. Now, what is this Gorgon? Gorgon in Greek mythology, there had been three sisters who had snake hairs, who had hair as snakes. I will read here. Okay. Gorgon, each of three sisters, Thano, Uriel, and Medusa, with snakes for hair, who had the power to turn anyone who looked at them to stone. So just as if a person who had seen, who would look at Gorgon, would turn into a stone, would turn motionless out of shock and horror. Similarly, he was also so horrified and shocked to see that he also became motionless. Sitting on the narrow bed was the very last man in the world that Evans had expected or wanted to see. If there was a man whom he never wanted to see, that was the governor. And that man was there in his room. It's not worth trying anything, said the governor quietly, as Ivan's eyes moved desperately around the room. Evans was so desperate, so helplessly. He had been moving his eyes here and there. And then he says, it's not worth trying anything. It's useless to try to escape, meaning you cannot escape us. I've got all men round the place. Governor turned to Evans and told him, it's useless making an effort to escape. You cannot escape because you are being surrounded by the cops all around. They're all my men around. Well, there were only two really, but Evans didn't know that. Anyway, there were only two people, but Evans should not know that. He let the words sink in. Women too. He said not only the men, but the women also deputed here. They have also been deputed by me. Didn't you think the blonde girl in reception was rather sweet? He said, you just saw a beautiful girl at the reception who is so beautifully. Didn't you notice that? Actually, he wanted to tell him that the beautiful young girl at the reception is also a cop. She is also a policewoman. Evans was visibly shaken. He was shaken. He was horrified. He sat down slowly in the only chair the small room could offer and held his head between his hands. For several minutes, there was utter silence, complete silence. For sometimes he could not speak anything, what to say. Then he gathered the courage. Finally, he spoke. It was a bloody correction slip, I suppose. Then finally he said, I think it was the mistake of that correction slip. Perhaps that has been used because of which my plan has spoiled. My attempt has spoiled. Well, the governor failed to mask the deep satisfaction in his voice. There are a few people who know a little German. The governor really wanted to appreciate him, but he would not. But he told him, there are a few people who know a little German. By this statement, he wanted to inform him that governor knew German language. So he had no problem in decoding the message from that correction slip. Slowly, very slowly, Evans relaxed. He was beaten. He was defeated. He was caught. He was defeated. And he knew it. He knew that his attempt to escape has been foiled. He sat up at last and managed to smile ruefully. He was smiling, but he was sad. Ruefully, sorrowfully, sadly. You know, it wasn't really a mistake. You see, we hadn't been able to fix up any hotel, but we could have worked that some other way. He says, no, it wasn't a mistake actually. We were not able to fix any hotel. So why that correction slip had been used actually? That is to give a message to him about the hotel, because it had not been fixed earlier. Had it been decided earlier, they wouldn't have to send a slip to him to give the hotel's address. Since Evans didn't know, so this message was sent for him. He said if it was fixed up earlier, it should have been fixed up some other way and earlier. And then the situation could be different. No, the real important thing was for the phone to ring just before the exam finished, to get everyone out of the way for a couple of minutes. He says what was very important was that the phone should ring before the exam started, and then all those on duty, they would definitely move for some time. So we had to know exactly when the exam started, didn't we? He was asking governor. Yes, any problem till here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And like a fool, I presented you with that little piece of information on a plate. Well, somebody did. So you see, sir, that correction slip killed two little birds with a single stone, didn't it? The name of the hotel for me and the exact time the exam started for, right. So just the conversation is going on, what the plan was, how the plan was carried out, where the mistake was, which could land him up in trouble. The governor nodded. It's pretty common word. Good job. It is pretty common, sir. Or I would never have known where to come to, would I? Nice name though. Zum Galtanen Lowen. Now, Manish, if you just decode this is German language. Zum Goldenen is for golden. Lowen is for lion. So this was the name of the hotel. The name that he could decode. How did you know which golden lion it was? There is hundreds of them. Evans wanted to know, how did the governor get to know about this particular hotel? Because there are around 100 branches of this hotel Golden Lion. He says, same as you, Evans, index number 313, center number 271. Remember? Yes, Manish, if you remember that the invigilator had announced before the exam started, this index number and center number. Governor, what he did, he used these numbers and he decoded these numbers also. Index number and center number, if you combine them, they become 6 figures. And if you take an ordnance survey map for Oxfordshire, you find that the 6-figure reference lands you bang in the middle of Chipping Norton. He says if you search this combination of the 6 figures on a survey map, then it will indicate, it will show the location of a place in the middle of Chipping Norton. And that's how he got the clue that from Chipping Norton he would go to Newbury. Yes, you are right. We had hoped you would run off to Newbury. He said, yes, we hope that you would have rushed to Newbury. We did. Well, that's something, I suppose. That question paper, Evans, could you really understand all that German? Now he wanted to be reassured. he wanted to confirm from Evans if he really knew German, that he was giving a German test. He asked him, that question paper, could you really understand the language, the content of the question paper? Because it was all German. No, of course, I couldn't. He admitted that he couldn't understand. I knew roughly what it was all about, but we just hoped it would throw a few spanners in the works, sort of muddle everybody a bit. He said, I didn't know German, but I knew what the message was about. So it had worked simply as a spanner, as a tool. Spanner is a sharp tool. It had simply worked as a tool. I just wanted to use it as a tool to confuse everybody and then escape. The governor stood up. Tell me one thing before we go. How on earth did you get all that blood to pour over your head? Because do you think McCleary was hurt? Or Evans's McCleary was hurt? No. What is it? It was all fake. So governor wanted to know how he could create, how he could bring, how he could create that situation where the blood has been flowing from his head. Evans suddenly looked a little happier. Why? Because very cleverly he had done this. Clever, sir, very clever that was. How to get a couple of pints of blood into a cell. He says, he means to say it was very difficult task to bring a pint of blood. It was very difficult to get the pints of blood, the units, some blood, the drops of blood. It was very difficult to bring blood into a jail. When there is none there to start off with, and when the invigilator, shall we say, gets searched before exams comes in. He says before exam, when we know that the invigilator would be searched, it was very difficult. So they have taken a risk. He had taken a risk that he got the blood in. Yes, sir, you can well ask about that. I don't know if I ought to tell you. After all, I might want to use that particular. Evans does not want to share the secret of the blood with the governor because he thought it to be a secret so that he might use it again in future if needed. Anything to do with a little rubber ring for piles, perhaps? But anyway, governor seemed to have some idea. So governor just engages him with some questions and forces him to answer. He says, you had been carrying that little rubber ring. It was for piles, perhaps you said. And this is something to do with the blood. Evans grinned feebly. He smiled weakly. Clever though, wasn't it? Why feebly, why weakly? Because he had been caught. Because this secret is out. This secret is out, how he had managed to get the blood into the cell. Must have been a tricky job sticking a couple of pins. Nah, you got it wrong, sir. No problem about that. No. He said it was difficult. It was difficult to bring it. He said, no, we did not find it difficult. It was in a different way. How they have done, that we will continue tomorrow. And tomorrow we will conclude the lesson and discuss questions.